Greetings, everyone. I'm Sherry Boatwright. This program is offered by Sacred Fire, and Sacred Fire's mission is to transform lives through the gift of fire. And we have fire keepers now in 8 countries around the world who are offering community fires and building community where they live. We They are trained and initiated, and we're very proud of our firekeepers. We also offer online and in-person Lifeways programs like this offering we have today. And these programs are by a variety of presenters, and they help us to see ourselves as part of the living world and understand that all the stages that we go through in life are valuable and important, and we can learn so much and connect so deeply to each other through the stages of life in our communities. We also offer various opportunities to explore the gifts of and teachings of Grandfather Fire. And we do this through online programs and also through in-person events. So today's program was organized primarily by Christine Staub, who is a firekeeper and community holder in the Greensboro, North Carolina area. We're grateful to Christine for this, and Christine is going to introduce our speaker. Thank you.
Hey, there we go. Well, it is my great honor to introduce Ilarion Merculieff, a wisdom keeper from the Onangan peoples. Ilarion's ancestors trace an extraordinary history that ultimately brought them at least 10,000 years ago to the Bering Sea, off the coast of Alaska, to two groups of islands known today as the Aleutian Islands and the Pribilof Islands. And here they densely populated the shorelines, continuing to develop a rich tradition of spirituality, art, dance, music, storytelling, science, and technology that enabled them to survive very harsh conditions. They were very skilled navigators and hunters and built sophisticated vessels that handled distant ocean travel. This was so until at least 1741. But by 1824, only 2,000 Unangan survivors were left, having experienced genocide, disease, and starvation, as well as slavery and suppression of their cultural practices, first at the hands of Russian fur traders and later by the US government. It was not until 1988 that the Unangans began to see their sovereign rights restored. Now, despite this oppression of his peoples, Ilarion was in the last generation to be raised entirely in the traditional way. Today, we hope he will share with us how his peoples accomplished all they did by being raised to be, quote, real human beings, end of quote, or real people who live in the present moment, guided by their hearts. The heart, you see, is viewed as the place where a being is in constant communication with all that is. And it's from this great sense of connection to everything that the Unangan people's natural laws, spiritual laws, and also technologies grew. Thankfully, Ilarion, like other respected wisdom keepers from around the world, share how this innate knowing of listening to the heart lives inside each of us, and it can be rekindled, first in ourselves, and then in how we relate to our children and grandchildren. And that includes how we can navigate the reality of a world in which machines, artificial intelligence, and ego mind have often obscured our remembering of our true nature. So now I'd like to say a big, warm welcome to Ilarion.
Thank you, Christine. I'm Juan. Kelamekamna Kelam Katsuda. Tiyunanganaway, Unanganasakta Kuya. I said Angwan, which means hello, my other self. That's the way our people greet each other every day. And I said the morning tastes good. It's morning here in Alaska. And I said, I am Unangan. We don't use the word Aleut because that was given to us by our former oppressor. We use Unangan, which means the real people by the sea. And many cultures in Alaska have the same kind of tradition. And I said my traditional name is Kuyach, which means like an arm extending out from the body, a carrier of ancient knowledge into modern times, a messenger. So I was given that name at 4 years old by the last Kuyach that was left alive amongst my people. I've been living the legacy of my name for over 50 years. And it's been quite a ride, but a good one. And I see that Ia, one of my elders, Ia Tahara, is online there. Hello, Ia.
Good. Hello, my brother. How are you today? Thank you.
I am doing good. Hopefully you are too.
A little challenged, but I want to tell you I need to leave early because we're doing a ceremony in about 30 minutes. So I need to leave early. I was just about to tell you.
Okay, thank you. Well, hopefully what I have to offer is useful to people today. So that's, thank you for that introduction. That was the best introduction I've heard in all the videotape sessions I've done.
I know you're a humble man and you would not have said all those things. I'm just going to take this moment to say, y'all, please get Ilarion's book because there's no way he's going to be able to share everything that's in here. But it is really, really precious, as you can tell from all the places that I've highlighted it. And
Is it at Amazon or where?
well, actually, we'll send you a link so you can order it somewhere not from Amazon. But yes, you can order it from Amazon also.
Okay.
Or you can order it from North Atlantic Books.
Right. So that'll be worthwhile. Listen, I forgot in a minute, I'm going to ask Anne to unspotlight me. I just forgot to mention that after Ilarion shares what Spirit is bringing through him, we will have time for Q&As. And if you would go ahead and if you have a question, if you look in the chat feature at the top, there's a little blue square with a pencil. And if you can find me, which is sort of interesting because where the heck am I? Well, Christine, facilitator, and write the question there so we don't bother everybody with the that chat so we can all stay focused on Ilarion. And then when the time comes, we'll ask questions. I'll ask the questions that way. If we have enough time, we may go live with the questions, but that's the plan. Okay? All right. Unspotlight me, please.
Okay, well, as Christine said, I have had, my generation was the last generation that had a traditional upbringing. You know, just to give you a taste of the way that I grew up, at 4 years old, when I received my name, I also was part of a tradition where for my grandfather to get to know me and for me to know my grandfather, I had to be with him 24/7 for 2 years. And I did everything with him, even going to his slave work that he did. He was janitor for the U.S. government. And I would be with him when he visited his friends every day, drinking tea, and they would talk in Unung and Tunu, we call it, the Aleut language, where I would just listen, watch, listen, learn. And we would go down to the Bering Sea every morning before sunrise, take off our shirts, even in the wintertime, and pray towards the east. And then that night, we might go to the Russian Orthodox Church because he saw no difference in the way where one got one's spirituality, not religion, but spirituality. And so we would do that every day and then go for a walk on the island. The island I live on was a magical place. It is only 12 miles long and 5 miles wide, very small. But yet in that small place, we had intensity of life, where we had about 2.5 million seabirds, 1.2 million northern fur seals, 1,000 reindeer, and 500 million people. It was quite a beautiful way to be brought up as a child. And then one day I was out with him, we were walking the island, and it was, you know, we're called the birthplace of the winds. The winds get stirred up in that Bering Sea area, and then they go east. And so we have 20 days of sunshine a year, believe it or not, only 20 days. Most of the time it's either overcast or foggy. And so this day was clear skies, no wind. The sea was flat calm. The birds were singing, the seals were barking, and it was so beautiful that I had to comment. I felt I had to comment. And I told my grandpa in Unangan Tunu, it's sure beautiful. And he goes, Tutuda. He just used one word, Tutuda, which means listen. And it's part of our cultural norm to understand that the most important thing that we experience as human beings should not be vocalized, should be internalized first. Yeah, if you want to talk about it later, you can do that. But the most important thing is to feel it. And nowadays, you know, in today's world, we've remarked about everything. But anyway, that was quite a lesson in itself. And then when he said Tutuda, he was explaining how our people survived and thrived in the Bering Sea for over 10,000 years, because words are considered superfluous and even dangerous. We just listen, watch and listen. And my people were people that did not vocalize very much unless it was, you know, that your heart told you you should do that. And my people, we have stories about our people coming out of Egypt, going to Outer Mongolia, to Siberia, and then to Kamchatka and across by traditional craft, not by the Bering Land Bridge, as most anthropologists say. And we developed the most densely populated, as Christine pointed out, we developed the most densely populated linear mile of shoreline in all of North America for our time. It was quite remarkable. And we have a word for billion. There are only 2 cultures in the whole world that, as far as we know, have a word for billion. And one is the Egyptians in a small village in Egypt that's next to a lake, and the other is the Unangan people. And I often ask people, you know, why would we have a word for billion. We can't count a billion anything. And even the stars, we count maybe 1,000 stars or 2,000 stars at a time when we look at it. So I leave that with you to think about. Anyway, we developed a spiritual system where it was important for us to trust in a way that I call faith, true faith. And that is that we embody the trust in at the cellular level of the body. It's not a thing of the mind. It's a thing of the heart. And that our heart tells us to trust that if we trust in this way, and we set our intention, as long as it's in harmony with Mother Earth, then the rest will be taken care of. There is total trust. So our people didn't plan where they were going to get the food the next day. Most cultures, it's important to know where to get your food so that your community or your people can survive. But our people didn't worry about that. And we developed the most densely populated linear mile or shoreline in North America in a place that's hard to eke out a living. But yet we did. And we had all the things that Christine talked about culturally. I was raised by the entire village. I had to spend equal time with the men, equal time with the women, equal time with the elders, and equal time with my peers. So the men would teach me the men's way, the women would teach me the women's way. The elders, they would always invite me every weekend where we would go out camping, and they would tell me story after story after story. It was quite remarkable. Then we, where the entire village raised me, is literally true. That every time, for example, that I went out of the house starting at age 5, and I encounter any adult that I would encounter.
There are many things come to mind, Boris, because it's not a straight line. It's not everybody's culture that's manifesting now ways that we can heal the families that are broken. And in that, those children are fractured, especially here where I live. If we don't have the community to receive and welcome a being onto the earth, we then start the process of a fall, a break in the evolution of your own culture within your own indigenous ways. So it's my work here is about challenging us to go back and read what the old proverb says in Africa language. Our current people, go back and fetch it, go back and get it. Nothing is wrong. You had an experience. We have had an experience. So now what will you do with that, my darling? And so these are the things I feel that it's many layers of what we talk about in children, because here children are suffering. 3 generations are suffering right here in Virgin Island because no work is done. This was the embarking. This is where the enslaved Africans was bought from and filtered out around the island, into islands, even into the Mississippi and southern states. And if we don't have that history, if we don't have that knowingness, we are not able to change and operate and raise another level of consciousness in our community. But what I found, the elders too are not ready. They still in that trap. Or oldie, they get old. It's okay to get your 201k so you can go around the world and look at whatever. But is that the role of the elders according to our indigenous way? That's a question we need to ask ourselves if we're still stuck there. And if we go on teaching and guiding other elders so we can continue to have a hoop of elders no matter what comes out of this new dispensation. It is important for us to remember the role of the elders. What were they? They were storytellers. They listened. They didn't think you was weird because you'd go to them and say, I had an experience, Mama, and that feel like a ghost came. So Mama gonna correct that. So no, partner, that probably was one of your busy spirits trying to get your attention. But we will protect you in a way that we know how to protect you. So my great-grandmother proceeded to do that for the child that had those visions. But in our Western culture, we label them as bipolar, schizophrenia, you go on. And even the service that's provided does not lead to that emanation that needs to raise out of that wounded body, out of our womb itself. So women are the catalyst for this new evolution, not leaving men off. I think, like Ilarion said, men need to deal with men right now because there's too much stuff that needs to be uncovered. And sometimes I found that when we tend to approach a male, there's a resistance. There's a, if they don't like what you say, you a name calling. I face those kind of things here in St. Croix. So we have to take in consideration, not projecting onto it, but what will we project on? Will we project our knowingness, our wisdom, our light, our frequency? How do we do all of that? How do we create the ley lines between all of these elder directions or earth directions and become those earth keepers? Become the true wisdom keeper, the activists, sacred activists. Can we do that? We raise our consciousness. We heal ourselves, and the world is healed with us. It only takes one to light the fire. One. And so it be. I love you. I appreciate all of you who showed up here. Especially you younger leaders, really take this in so you can be the best on this planet. I love you.
Thank you, Iya. Thank you for how do we move with this raising children, remembering to go follow the heart as a compass in a world where everybody's also engaging with internet and iPhones and you just about can't get away from it. So we'll turn the floor to you.
Yeah, well, where I left off was the entire village raised me, and I explained about what I did to learn from the people, and of course, then I had to spend equal time with my peers, and then I think my other computer is finally starting to get alive. Okay, so I learned a great deal by doing that. And of course, the adults always affirm me. Every single adult that I'd ever meet would affirm me in some way, starting at age 4 and until I was age 13. I might encounter an adult and the adult would say, Ang lakaya, tungoda, umigchidwa, echamnakoch lakaya, they would say, good boy. And that's the way every adult would greet me every day. Now you can't imagine what that does to a child. And I could go to anybody's house day or night, and I'd be greeted like the long lost son. Come in, sit down, eat. And that's the way our people were. And I could go there anytime, day or night. And I never was scolded. I don't know how many of you have never been scolded, but it's quite a way. One time I stole $20 from my grandfather. I wanted to buy this plastic airplane sold in the government store. And so I stole the money. I went down to the store, bought the plane, and unbeknownst to me, my aunt was standing right behind me. And so I knew I was caught because $20, I mean, it would take a year to get $20. And so she didn't say anything. She didn't say anything to me while I was in the building. She waited until I walked out. She walked behind me, and she says in a very unaccusatory way, Inunung and Tuna, but I'll translate. Larry, where did you get that $20 from? And of course, I knew I was caught, so I told her, I stole it from my grandfather. And she goes, what do you think you should do about that? She left it up to me. She didn't chastise me. She didn't criticize me. She didn't tell me I was wrong. She just asked me to make my own decision. What is it that I would do? So I told her, well, I guess, I should return the plane, get the money back, and tell my grandfather I stole it from him. And she goes, Mahun, okay. So I walked back in, turned the plane in, got $20. She took $20 out of her own pocket and bought the plane for me. And then I tell my grandfather, Papa, I stole this money from you, and I'm sorry. And he goes, good boy. See, the genius of that is that they focused on what correct things the person does, not the incorrect one. They acknowledge the incorrect behavior, but they focused on the correct behavior. And I never stole any money or anything for the rest of my life. I was 9 years old then. So that's the way that our people were, because my mother, well, she said, our people cry when a baby's born and celebrate when they die. It's opposite in today's society everywhere. But anyway, my people understood that we are spirit beings that take human form. And when we take human form, we're going to be very heavy compared, in every which way. And that we're going to suffer the pains and trials and tribulations of a human being when we get to be a human being. And then, of course, when we die, we're back to our free form. And so that's, and our people understood that it's easy to traumatize a spirit being in human form. And spirit being in human form, we are extremely sensitive. I don't think there's any person in the world that hasn't been traumatized in some form or another. And we don't realize that, and that this trauma can interfere with you being a real human being. The adult's job was to create the space for a child to learn, not tell them what to learn, how to learn, or to define anything. Now, in this world, we're defining everything for our kids. And so it's opposite of what we must do, because my job as a child was to watch, listen, and learn. I grew up not asking a single question of the adults. And you see, in that way, I can expand out to the maximum of my capability without the interference of another human being except myself. And that's what we call personal authority. I feel like because we have taught and defined and take away the personal authority of children, is why today we are at the crossroads of human beings' existence. That we have taken so much away that we're depending on others outside of ourselves to decide what we must do that's important in life. And so now we are in the conundrums that we have today. And in the US, of course, society, we're split in half, and we're fighting against each other, et cetera, because I feel because we have forgotten what it means to have personal authority. And that personal authority allows me to explore the world and let me figure out what's happening. And I've learned a lot in this way. So, for example, I love the birds. We have, like I said, we had 2.5 million seabirds on an island 12 miles long and 5 miles wide. We only had 7 rookeries. And so under each rookery must be over 10,000 or more seabirds. And so I loved them. And so what I would do starting at 6 years old is I would walk out by myself at 3 o'clock in the morning to be at the closest bird cliff that would be there. And today that would be considered child abuse because you let a 6-year-old out in the wilderness by themselves at night by themselves. No. So they understood that I had developed this sense of personal authority. So I would know what is unsafe and what's not unsafe. And so I would go out there at 6 o'clock in the morning and be there at 6 o'clock in the morning when the sun rises, because that's when the birds wake up and fly off the cliff ledges. And so this bird cliff was 3 miles away from the village. And so I walked there, got underneath the bird, and birds start waking up. They would take and form a circle, many circles in front of the bird cliff to wait for until enough species of enough birds of their own species would be there. Then they would go out foraging. And, they would be flying in every which direction, diagonally left, diagonally right, sideways, up, down, different speeds. And then I noticed something at 6 years old, because I had this personal authority, that I noticed that the birds never even clipped a wing. There must be over 10,000 seabirds underneath that cliff, and none of them clipped a wing. And I wondered, wow, what's the difference between a seabird and me? And I thought at 6 years old, well, birds don't think. And I didn't learn the words for this until later on, but they're a field of awareness. And this field of awareness tells them where to be at any time. And so I said, I was 6 years old, I want to be a seabird. And so I worked at not thinking for 2 months until I accomplished it. Not a single word would come through my head. And at all. And then I would be there without any thought. I don't think anybody today can imagine what that is because we're brain-centered, we're mind-centered. We think that logic and rational thinking is the way to go, when I maintain that we need trans-rationality to go to the heart. It's trans-rational. And it never guides you wrong. It always guides you correctly. And so by doing that, I am doing what traditionally most Native people in the world do. Now, I facilitate Wisdom Weavers of the World. So, and it's a collection of elders from throughout the world. And, they say that traditionally our hearts used to tell the mind what to do. Now the mind tells the heart what to do. And this is why the elders say we have the problems that we have in the world that face human beings today. And that this is a time to awaken ourselves up to the fact that we have reversed all the laws for living. And that unless we do this in the next few years, we're going to have some very hard times. And, I met with Don Alejandro, who was the keeper of the day calendar for the Mayans. And he said, we're going to have a very hard time as human beings. And the ones that are going to negotiate this time the best are going to be people of the fire, which means people of the heart. And that we need to find ourselves by going back to our heart. It is the only place that I feel is connected with the divine or our higher self, whatever you might call it. It's a source of light and love and wisdom that we need to tap into that we have forgotten. And women have a role to play in all of this today, during this time, because the indigenous people of the world are saying that this is a time when women are going to take the lead. And it's not a lead that is very visible, because invisible work is spiritual work. And that the women are going to lead the way, because we have a story where amongst our Nungan people, it said there's a womb at the center of the universe. It's a place of creation and creativity. And the identical field of energy is in every woman's womb. And this is why women all over the world were considered sacred at one point in time, that we have twisted up so much now. And so, yeah, I think I've shared enough of this. I can answer any question that you might have, Christine.
Well, you've already in some ways answered some people's questions, which is always fun. I'm going to kind of rephrase it. So some of us are parents of adult children, and well, we didn't get trained on how to raise children. So we've already, quote, we did our best, but we made some mistakes. Like we scolded our kids. We created something within them that is now a trigger that they're having a hard time forgiving. How would you advise a parent to dance with that? And
Okay,
especially when
good
that parent
question.
is also going to be grandparents at some point. So
Yeah. Okay. Before I answer that question, I'm going to sign on to my main computer. It just came on, and see if that works. In the meantime, I'll keep this one going. Okay? Not quite. Okay, well, we have forgotten what it is to be a child. I don't know what university did this study, but they did it in the United Kingdom, and they took children and studied them. And after several years, they came out with the report that all children were geniuses at one point in time. And that what we've done is dumbed them down as human beings. And so when you apply that to today's world, you think about, for example, when a child is hurt, they're crying, and the adult response generally is to hold the child and say, "It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay." When to the child at that moment, it's not okay. And that when you tell them that it's going to be okay, it's counter to what they're feeling. And so they grow up eventually with split personalities. And so we get into the dynamics of duality, right, wrong, good, bad, all these kinds of things. When spiritually, you unify the two, and you don't separate them, but we separate. And so now we've separated everything in life. Scientifically, to study something, you have to take one species and take a piece of that species to study them, thinking you're going to understand the whole. But Native people understand that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, and that it's far more complex than the simplistic Western science that is applied. Now, I'm not saying that Western science is bad. We need both. And when we do that, we are starting to heal the separation that we have in ourselves, because the elders say nothing is created outside until it's created inside first. So we're criticizing outside because we criticize first ourselves, and then we judge others outside because we're judging ourselves. We trash Mother Earth because we're trashing our own bodies. And so to heal that, you have to understand what that is. My computer is still trying to open up. Okay, and do what you can to stop thinking. We are a thought-filled society. We've got more storehouses of people's thoughts than any time in human history. And no one can understand all of it. But the elders say, if we are able to get to our hearts, we each have a gift to give right now. We are here for a purpose. We chose to be here at this time. And that when you go to your heart and you listen to your heart will tell you what you must do. And but now we're so mind-centered that we don't listen to the heart. And those who think that they do listen to their heart, there's a question about whether or not our ego, is telling the heart that it's going to talk for the heart. This is hard to understand, but it's really true. And that in order to clear this, you have to be able to stop the mind, or you watch the mind's thoughts and you think of them as passing clouds. You don't judge it, you don't think, you just watch it. Just let it go by. because the mind is knowing that it might die, and the ego doesn't want to die. And so we must understand that when we don't judge it, we let it go by, then we don't have to deal with that. Then we got to deal with, the traumas that we have faced as children, usually, and process those feelings and let them go. But most people don't do that because they think if they go back to that trauma, they will relive it and re-traumatize themselves. But the way that I do it, for example, is to watch the watcher, I call it, where I detach from my physical self and look at myself watching myself. So I'm calling it the watch the watcher. You watch the watcher. You distance yourself from that trauma, and you can process it and then let them go. You have to do this. Otherwise, it's going to constantly come back to haunt us. We are in, we feel guilt, shame, remorse, anger, rage, jealousy, all these kinds of things from the past, or we have fear, which is projection into the future of something that hasn't happened yet. Every place except the now. And only in the now can we know what we must do and be in connection with our divine. And so it's kind of a long answer, but it's a start.
Great. Well, we've
I
got
hope people
your new
understood
computer. We've
that.
got you on your other computer. Do you want to switch over to that now, or we let you in on the other line if you want to, just so you know. So there's a lot of ways we can go with this. I think you've already answered some of the questions that related to, did your people experience trauma? Well, guys, again, I can't tell you, please read this book. And that's the most amazing thing that Ilarion uh, is so compassionate and so willing to share his wisdom, despite the fact that he had it was very, very hard in many other ways. He's speaking about all the beautiful things, but there were lots of ways. And I think that one other question that was brought forth, do you have any other tips for letting go, like you just spoke about? Just maybe something that you're teaching your stepdaughters right now. Maybe there's an experience that you're willing to share sort of anonymously of, something that they're experiencing and how you're helping them to release their mind's perception, judgment, whatever of it, and go to the heart. I don't know.
Good question. There are probably lots of ways that you can use to stop your mind or let it go by. And one of those ways would be a meditation, but I would advise active meditation because people in the US and the Western world are right now, as you point out, are so rushed. I mean, we're moving fast. Even the children who are raised today are talking faster than we did. And sometimes we can't even understand what they're saying. But the computers are going faster, everything is going faster. And so when in fact what we need to do is slow down. Now in Alaska, all the tribes, there are over 200 tribes in Alaska, the most of any place. They talk slower, they move slower, they act slower. And some of the villages have forgotten why they do this, but in Western society, they feel like that the students who go to school, they don't raise their hands first. They don't have the answer right away. You know, they're slower, but people think that they're dumb or stupid or somehow not paying attention. No, they are indoctrinated to a way of slowing down so that we can hear what Mother Earth is saying. Now, that's an important thing that most people will have a hard time doing because we're in a world that's so filled with speed. But this is exactly what we must do. We must slow down. And even when you go to restaurants, everybody's talking and over each other, and it's so noisy. They can't hear what I say because my voice is so soft. And so it's very difficult when you see you have these experiences of speed all the time. And so if we do the counter to that, then we are able to begin to understand what is going on. Now, this also means, like, remember as a child, we used to look at a little bug and stare at it for a long time, or a plant or something. We would just focus on that. We are energy beings. And as a child, they are in tune with their energy. And they're very visual, where we're trying to focus on their mind. They're visual. So we're, as children, we're very visual. That's the way we learn. And that's how you achieve your self-authority, is by doing this. And so we need to be out in nature, and not for recreation or sport, but just to be there. And just try not to think, and just take in what's going on. Slow down and feel what's happening. And when you do this, you're taking another step towards becoming a real human being. Now, I said, meditation helps. And you have to do, in the Western world, active meditation, not the passive one where you're sitting down and some people can do that, but most people can't because they were attuned to speed. And so what we must do is active meditation. So, the free-form dance, for example, crying for an hour and lay down and feel the energy, and do this for a month every day. Laughing for an hour. There are laughing kiosks in India. There's a reason for that. You laugh for an hour for a month. You can do any of those kinds of things. The whirling dervish, that's another form of meditation, believe it or not, where you're twirling around and focused only on, initially you need to focus on your hand because you get dizzy. And if you keep twirling around, as children, we did that. And so we stare at this one piece in our hand and go around and go faster and faster until you're able to flow and just be, put your hand anywhere you want. You can go at any speed you want. You're not even dizzy. So these are some ways, but there are many ways for healing that there are that allows us to heal, but we're focused on models for healing. There's no model for healing. We are all human beings. And that when you're able to achieve that human being self, wake up to be human, you will have a gift to give to the world that is needed now. every single person is needed now. Because Mother Earth, she's saying that we're not here to heal her. We can't heal her. She's survived for billions of years. She's going to survive for billions more. It's a question about whether or not we humans are going to survive. And so what she's saying is that she is intensifying her abilities. So we're seeing more volcanic activity, more floods, more fires, more droughts, all these kinds of things that are happening to Mother Earth because she is going through a time of purification. She needs to purify herself of all those things that are causing her to die slowly. And that unless we wake up, we're going to be part of what contributes to the death of Mother Earth.
Thank you, Ilarion. I'm going to point to a few other questions that you asked, that you wrote about in the book, even though we're sort of talking about raising children and we're imagining, oh, from infancy and toddlers and little kids, but a lot of the questions that have come in is you relate to young adults and adults in terms of like making up for what, happened when we were younger. And you've given us a couple of ideas about correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like the more that we model, just like you watched the elders in your community and watched the men and the women, the more that we practice on our own to slow down, to let the thoughts float by, to allow ourselves to be visual, to do moving meditations, etc. The more that we model that, that children will naturally feel inclined to, hey, I want to do that too. Like I want to participate in that as well. There's a wonderful story in your book about uh, once your peoples started developing their sovereignty again, they had like a community center and they had all these video games set up in there. And all the young people were busy playing video games. Can you share what you did to invite them to either their own free will, kind of like like your relative told you to do, like what do you do when you steal? What did you do to invite them to like maybe move away from that and
Yeah,
go
well,
direction?
I was hired to be the city manager after I was Commissioner of Commerce and Economic Development and for the state of Alaska. And so I went to St. Paul Island, back home as city manager. And the first thing I noticed at the city hall was upstairs, there used to be a big social gathering place. But now there were video games in every inch of that place. And the mothers there didn't want me to tear it down, but I said, I'm going to get them out of this place to restore our community gathering site. I said, we'll work with the kids about what they want, not about what we want or what we think will take care of them and get them out of our way. And so they reluctantly agreed. And so now we still have this beautiful hall where they do gatherings of all kinds, and including community dances. And that's one of my success stories of what I did. Yeah.
I think part of your story with those teenagers was that you allowed them to use that innate wisdom to help find their inner purpose and find ways that you got them involved.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's right. What we did was allow them to remember who they are, and that it's not about modern technology, because modern technology is running as part of the whole system of keeping our minds engaged, so that we don't think about what we need to think about, I think.
And so there was a question, again, I'm just going to keep moving in this direction. The question, I'll read it out loud. We can be very good parents, but our kids are living within a context. We can empower their personal authority to navigate their world, but it seems like we still need to steer them towards their heart, given the context of technology and their disconnected friends. And there was someone else who also mentioned that there seem to be more and more young people who are like fine living by themselves and not really necessarily interested in having children, like they've gotten disconnected from the idea of community, which as we've learned, community can be messy. Like it takes some work. It's part of that thing of uh being a soul practice, a soul that is practicing being a body, but to be in relationship with the other bodies, both human and non-human, right? So,
Yeah.
what else might you want to say around that?
Well, that's why we say Angwan. Hello, my other self. This is a way of understanding. I talk with religious groups, and in one place I had something like 25 pastors, and I said to them, take a kitchen rubber glove and blow it up, and it's like that. And these fingers think they're human beings when we're only one breath. Think about that. We are only one breath. And it's hard to think that because I feel and think and see you as another person, that you're really separate from me, but you're not. You think you are, but you're not. We're all the same. And whatever I say that resonates with people who are watching, I'm only reminding you of what you already know. And so that's, if you can take that in, then you're going to do just fine. I think about, you watch the two-year-old child. I asked my elder, what's this about culture and dance and singing and all that, rites of passage? And he said, our professors are the two-year-old children. Our professors for our singing or dancing or rites of passage and all these things of chanting. You watch a two-year-old child. I watched one time. I watched two boys playing with each other. They were 2 years old, and they were playing just fine, having fun. And then all of a sudden, one of them got really mad, and he took his whole body and just went at his anger. And then 2 minutes later, it was gone, and they were playing with each other again. What is that? And one of my elders, Rita Blumenstein, who was the spiritual advisor to the 13 grandmothers, the 13 Indigenous grandmothers, said, we are energy beings, and that if you experience something that creates a feeling, and that feeling isn't expressed in a good way, it sinks into your body and until it becomes like a stagnant pool of energy. And that stagnant pool will kill you eventually. You must take your feeling and let them go as soon as it happens. And she said, now we live in a world which is not safe to emote. And so, if a man cried in a business meeting, that's a no-no. That's not what a man is supposed to do. Well, that's not something that our people endorse. When you have this feeling, whatever it is, you say to that feeling right now, you say, okay, I know you're there, feeling. I'm going to attend to you as soon as I can. And do it. because your body has their own intelligence. It knows. So if you don't do it, it will know. But if you do it, you get back to that feeling and do whatever you want to do that your feeling tells you to do. Now, you got to do it in a safe place because it's not safe everywhere to emote this way. Or do it with a friend that the friend who will understand what you're doing or accept what you're doing. And let that feeling go. Every day, just do something that lets those feelings go. This is what the 2-year-old child does. Now, the 2-year-old child, how many of your listeners used to jump on beds or trampoline? We all did that as kids, right? Well, NASA uses that as a way to, it's called negative gravity. When you're going down, your innards are going upwards. And so what it does is purges toxins from your body. It's natural. They took a child in one study, put a room full of food in there, a 2-year-old child, room full of food in there, and left them alone for 2 days. Now, that would have been considered child abuse today, but they did that study, and the child picked out exactly what it needed to survive and to thrive. These are things that everybody's got the ability to do. And we are called to do these things now.
Wonderful. Well, let's see. I'm trying to figure out if I can ask you a question that you can answer in about 3 minutes, because then I'm supposed to turn the floor back over to Sherry. I think I'm going to make a plug. I'm just going to make a shameless plug for Sacred Fire as a firekeeper now for 20 years, and several of us firekeepers are on this call also, because part of our training, of course, has been exactly that, to gather people around a consecrated fire where the expression of our emotions, not the story that we tell about something, but the feeling that we get to have it expressed, witnessed, nobody giving advice about suppressing it or doing something about it. And, it's like 20, I've even just recently experienced it myself, just watching the transformation of us as humans when we arrive at that circle and when we leave that circle, because the fire has basically taken that and just like a piece of wood gets transformed into light and heat, right? When it gets put in there. So highly recommend. I'm just putting that plug in. Sherry is going to put a plug in for Lifeways, but I'm going to put a plug in for that. If you were
No,
wanting to, Mhm.
please don't lose your train of thought, but it just occurred to me about one of the reasons we have community gatherings, and you notice that they always bring their children. And even to meetings, they bring children. And the children, most people are afraid that the children are going to be so ruckus and noisy and stuff like that, they'll disrupt the meeting. But when you accept the child as they are, and they go to these meetings, they will respond to the energy that the adults project. And they will know that, if they're concerned about us being noisy, we're going to be noisy. But if you're not concerned about that, you just have a sense of calm in the gathering, that the children will calm down. Okay, your train of thought.
No, you have, you know what? You haven't interrupted my train of thought, and I'm not going to dare to answer all the different experiences that I've had over the years about children, and it's quite fascinating. One time we had 13 children show up at a fire, like toddler to like maybe preteen. And so we couldn't do what we normally do, which is adults sharing, what's kind of heavy on their heart and everything. It just wasn't happening. This was before we had any other kind of way. And you know what? It was spring. And so what do? We got out all the percussion instruments and we just started percussing, and the kids were dancing around. They were dancing around, and this little toddler would go to each drum and drum on the drum. And it was like oh, hello, this is the energy of spring. This is like the movement. It's just one example, but you're right. To find more ways, and many are more established communities have different events where they are allow the entire family to be there, and the children are a very important part of that, as are the elders. So we're going to put into the chat also your organization's website so people can tune into that. And then your wife Yael leads something called Wombs of Peace that meets about quarterly, where we have wisdom keepers from around the world, including the one that shared with us earlier today while you were offline, sharing on a particular topic. And now I'm going to just again I'm going to offer my personal deep gratitude to you, Ilarion. You know that the first time I met you, if that had been the only time, you like changed my life just from the few words of wisdom you gave me over lunch in Anchorage, Alaska. Now I turn the floor over to Sherry, our Director of Lifeways, who will spotlight.
Thank you so much, Christine and Ilarion. What a gift to have both of you on the call today. I really appreciate it. I wanted to just quickly say that we have two Lifeways offerings coming up, actually in the fall and in next year, that I want to go ahead and tell you about right now, because they're important events that we want you to know about. There's going to be a women's retreat at the Blue Deer Center in Margaretville, New York, October 8th, 9th through the 12th. It's called Rooted and Resilient. And as Ilarion was speaking about the importance of women and what we have to bring to the world in this time, that's what this offering is all about. So Anne's going to put that in the chat, and we'd welcome any of you to attend if you can. And then also, we've just completed a young men's initiation within the Sacred Fire community, greater community. And next year, in 2026, in July, the 24th through the 31st, we're having our first young women's initiation in a few years. And we want everybody to put that on your calendar. And if you have young women between the ages of 16 and 25 in your family or your community, among your friends that would would love to have this kind of experience where they have the opportunity to really go deep inside and with elders and with other young women and find their purpose for their lives and their direction. We would love you to help us spread this word of Young Women's Initiation for next summer in July. And I believe Anne is putting that in the chat also. So those are our announcements for now. Again, thank you so much to Ilarion and to Christine. And I hope you all have a wonderful day and stay tuned for further.
Ilarion has something that he wants to say. He's raised his hand. Go for it. Go for it, Ilarion.
Yeah. Well, I'm really glad you're doing this work with the women and the girl. And one thing that you should know that the elders around the world understand about what's happening is that if they're saying that if women get together in sisterhood, they can heal themselves quickly. We men, we might take an entire life to learn something, but women can do it just like that. They can heal themselves instantly if they gather together in sisterhood. And then once they do that, then they can take the energy inside of their womb and place it on the outside so something new can be birthed. Until this happens, nothing new is going to be birthed. Not even the state-of-the-art thinking, state-of-the-art technology is nothing but the old regurgitated as the new. Understand this, And so when you create this container, remember, you are part of life giving,
Yes.
and so is Mother Earth. And so the more that you do these kind of things, the more you're going to see the power of it. We did this in Israel a year ago or 2 years ago, and the women got together, and I said, "You're going to create the ceremony, not me, but I will guide you on how to do that." And so they did, and they created these ceremonies to bless Mother Earth and the sacredness of Mother Earth and the cessation of separation. And the next year, the what do you call that water of the Dead Sea? They call it the Dead Sea. It blossomed with all kinds of flowers that they hadn't seen in years. That's just one example of what women can do.
Thank you so much. Yes, and we'll be doing that we'll be gathering together with a group of women in October at the Blue Deer Center, and we hope you can come and take Ilarion's words to heart and gather with other women for the sake of yourselves and for the sake of the world. So thank you again, everyone. We hope you will join us at the fires. We hope you'll join us online and at our in-person offerings. Thank you so much and goodbye.